Shedeur Sanders has officially demanded a trade, and the timing couldn't be more explosive. In a league where quarterbacks are either crowned or cast aside, Sanders is forcing the conversation no one wanted to have yet. He's not waiting for an injury. He's not asking for permission. He's telling the NFL, I'm ready, and I won't sit in the shadows any longer. And just like that, Cincinnati is on the clock. Joe Burrow is down. Again. This time it's turf toe, severe enough to need surgery, and keep him out for a minimum of 3 months.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
That's not a tweak. It's a ticking time bomb for the Bengals' entire season. With Burrow gone, their offense is a luxury car with no engine. And Jake Browning? A solid clipboard holder, but no one's mistaking him for a playoff-caliber quarterback. The Bengals need a lifeline, and Shedeur Sanders just threw one, wrapped in raw talent and attitude. The Cleveland quarterback isn't some fringe prospect begging for reps. He's a calculated, polished passer with NFL-caliber anticipation, pocket presence, and arm that would light up Cincinnati's deep ball-heavy scheme. This isn't a charity case. It's a power move. And yet, he's still on the sidelines. The whispers have started about politics, about collusion, about teams quietly steering the narrative. Is it because of his last name? Because of the hype? Because of fear that a rookie with this much confidence might actually be right about himself? For a league that claims to value merit, the hesitancy around Sanders feels suspiciously coordinated. Cincinnati, meanwhile, is facing a moral and strategic dilemma. Stick with the safe, system guy who won't rock the boat, or make a move that actually gives them a chance to win. With Jamar Chase and T. Higgins still in their prime and a defense that's more than capable, the window isn't just open, it's begging to be used. But they need someone who can run the show. Sanders can do that. He has the mechanics, the leadership, and the swagger to step into the storm and take control. Burrow's not being replaced. He's being protected. Because the hard truth is, Burrow's body is telling a story no one wants to read. Injury after injury, season after season, and now a toe that threatens to derail everything. The Bengals have two choices: sit still and hope, or move now and shift their future. Shedeur already made his decision. Now it's Cincinnati's turn. The Cincinnati Bengals are not just in trouble, they're on the edge of collapse. Joe Burrow is out, not for a game, not for a week, for months. His turf toe diagnosis, once brushed off as minor, has now escalated into a full-on medical crisis. He's going under the knife. That means no Burrow until at least mid-December, assuming his recovery is smooth, and that's never a guarantee with this team's injury history. This isn't just a rough patch. This is a threat to the entire season. The Bengals are currently sitting in a brutally competitive AFC North. Every week matters. Every game counts. And now, with Jake Browning, an unproven backup with zero momentum, slotted to take over under center, the entire fan base is holding its breath. The question isn't whether they'll win the division anymore. It's whether they'll even survive until Burrow returns. So when the news breaks that Shedeur Sanders, the highly touted young quarterback from Cleveland, is demanding a trade, that's not just news, it's an opportunity. And for Cincinnati, it might be the only lifeline left. This isn't some mid-tier journeyman or a practice squad emergency signing. Shedeur is the real deal. NFL-level arm strength, calm under pressure, the ability to read defenses and anticipate throws. He has all the intangibles teams spend years trying to develop, and he's available, not theoretically, not in some distant draft class. Right now, let's not pretend the fit isn't obvious. The Bengals run a vertical offense, timing routes, deep shots, and quick reads. That's exactly where Shedeur thrives. And unlike Browning, he brings actual upside to position, not just survival instincts, but the ability to win games. So, why hasn't this trade happened? That's the question fans and analysts are asking, and the lack of answers is getting suspicious. On paper, this is a win-win. The Bengals need a quarterback, and Sanders is actively seeking a move. But instead of urgency, we're seeing hesitation. And instead of negotiations, we're hearing whispers. Whispers about league politics, about collusion, about the NFL machine quietly resisting a player who's daring to break the mold. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Shedeur Sanders doesn't fit the traditional NFL script. He's outspoken. He knows his value. He doesn't shrink himself to appease gatekeepers. He's not interested in sitting quietly in a QB room for 3 years hoping for a chance. He wants the ball, and he's not afraid to say it. And for a league built on structure, hierarchy, and compliance, that's threatening. What we're seeing play out with Shedeur isn't just about football. It's about control. It's about who gets to decide when a player is ready. And it's about how much power a young quarterback is allowed to have before he even takes an NFL snap. But guess what? Readiness doesn't mean sitting still. Readiness means being prepared when the moment hits. And this is the moment for Shedeur, for the Bengals, for everyone watching. Burrow's absence is more than a temporary setback. It's a spotlight on how fragile the Bengals' future really is. This is a quarterback who has already suffered multiple injuries. A torn ACL, a dislocated wrist, a strained calf, and now surgery for turf toe. This isn't just about bad luck. It's a pattern. And any front office pretending this is all just temporary is doing a disservice to the franchise. The Bengals have built a roster around a championship window. Their top wideouts are already pushing into veteran territory. T. Higgins is a free agent after this season. Jamar Chase isn't going to stay patient forever. And the defense? Young, yes, but how long can you expect them to carry a broken fence before morale cracks? You don't wait out windows in the NFL. You attack them. And Shedeur Sanders might be the only viable attack plan left on the table. He wouldn't need to start this Sunday. He'd need time to get the playbook down, adjust to the speed of the game, build chemistry. But the timeline works. With Burrow out until at least December, that gives Shedeur weeks to prepare. Weeks to get ready. Weeks to position himself to take over when it matters most. If the Bengals are even still in contention by then, and if Browning flounders, if the offense sputters and they fall out of playoff position, you need someone ready to take over and lead. Not just survive, lead. And Shedeur can do that. Of course, there's risk. There's media scrutiny. There's the inevitable debate about whether it's too soon. But let's not forget, those same debates were had about Lamar Jackson, about Jalen Hurts, about Justin Herbert, about almost every successful quarterback who didn't follow the traditional path. Greatness doesn't wait for approval. It demands opportunity. And right now, the Bengals are staring at the most obvious, logical, and high-upside opportunity they've had in years. What's the alternative? Ride with Jake Browning until the locker room checks out? Cross your fingers that Burrow comes back in Week 16 and magically shakes off Russ in time to maybe sneak into playoffs? That's not a strategy. That's wishful thinking. And the AFC? That doesn't cut it. Meanwhile, if Shedeur goes to another team, let's say a struggling franchise willing to roll the dice, you're going to hear that name again. And again. And again. You'll hear it in post-game highlights, in rising QB rankings, in comparisons, in playoff matchups. And you'll think, he could have been ours. You know what happens when you pass on bold moves? You don't just lose games. You lose players. You lose fan trust. You lose identity. And if the Bengals want to keep this core intact, if they want to prove to fans, to free agents, and to their own locker room that they're serious about competing, they need to act like it. That means no more hesitating. No more protecting feelings. No more hiding behind development timelines. That means making the call. Trade for Shedeur Sanders. Give him the shot. Let him learn. Let him grow. Let him play. Maybe he becomes a star. Maybe he becomes a solid backup. But the cost of finding out? Far lower than the cost of doing nothing. Because if you let this moment pass, if you let a franchise quarterback's absence turn into a wasted season when potential star was right there, ready and willing, you're not just losing games. You're losing your chance. The NFL doesn't wait. It moves fast. Teams rise and fall on a single injury, a single trade, a single decision. This is that decision. So, Bengals fans, we want to know, do you trust your front office to make the bold move? Do you believe Shedeur Sanders deserves a shot in Cincinnati? Or are we about to watch another team swoop in, take the risk, and reap the rewards? Sound off in the comments. Let it rip. And if you're here for the chaos, the politics, and the drama that keeps the NFL running hotter than any primetime series, hit subscribe. Because this league, it never sleeps. And neither do the headlines. This is about how the NFL treats talent. It's about timing, opportunity, and the uncomfortable truth that not every player is given the same path to prove themselves. Shedeur Sanders demanded a trade. That's a fact. He's not quietly requesting more reps in the film room. He's not lobbying behind closed doors. He went public. And that matters. Because when a quarterback puts it all on the table like that, he's not just asking for attention. He's asking for accountability. From the front office, from the coaching staff, from the league. He's saying, I'm ready. You just don't want to admit it. And for Cincinnati, that should have been a wake-up call. Joe Burrow is their guy. No one's disputing that. But being the guy only matters if you're on the field. And let's be real, Burrow hasn't been able to stay there. We're now years into a pattern of him taking punishing hits, piling up injuries, and grinding through pain until he physically can't anymore. And this time, the injury doesn't just pull him off the field. It potentially rips the season apart. So why hasn't Cincinnati already made the move? Are they afraid of the optics? Afraid that bringing in Shedeur looks like they're undermining Burrow? Because if that's the case, it's nonsense. This league is built on depth. Every contender knows it. Quarterback insurance isn't betrayal. It's just smart business. Just ask the Eagles. Just ask the 49ers. You need a plan B, and the Bengals don't have one. Jake Browning is a backup by title, but that's all. He doesn't inspire confidence. He doesn't elevate the team. He's not someone you build a game plan around. He's who you use when you have to, not when you choose to. And yet, the Bengals are standing still while a young quarterback with NFL traits, a professional pedigree, and actual desire to compete is waiting for the call. Shedeur is not asking to be handed the job. He's asking to earn it, somewhere that will actually give him the chance. So why not Cincinnati? Let's talk about the system. Zach Taylor's offense is quarterback-friendly. Quick reads, open throws, explosive weapons on the outside. It's a setup built for a quarterback who can process fast, deliver accurately, and stretch the field. That is Shedeur Sanders. His anticipation, his footwork, his ability to stay composed even when protection breaks down. Those aren't college-only traits. Those are Sunday traits. You can develop a quarterback like that in real time, not by locking him on the bench and letting him collect dust. And the timeline couldn't be more perfect. Burrow's out for 3 months. That's 3 months for Shedeur to study the playbook. 3 months to get reps with the second unit. 3 months to build chemistry. And then, when things start to fall apart or the playoffs start slipping away, he steps in, not as a miracle worker, but as a lifeline. Because if the Bengals want to have any shot at extending their season beyond Week 17, they'll need a quarterback who can win games, not just manage them, not just keep them close. Win. And here's the brutal part. If they don't make this move, and they go 6-11, or worse, end up in the dreaded 8-9 no man's land, too bad for playoffs and too good for a high pick, then what? Then the franchise has wasted a year of Chase's prime. They've driven another wedge between their current core and the front office. They've sent the message that when adversity hits, they retreat, all while another team takes Shedeur Sanders, gives him snaps, develops him, and maybe turns him into a star. Then what? Then you're the franchise that blinked. Let's be real. The Bengals aren't the lovable losers of the early 2000s anymore. They've got expectations now. They've been to the Super Bowl. They've got one of the most electrifying offenses in the league, when healthy. And they paid Joe Burrow as their future. The bar has been raised. And that's a good thing. But you don't meet that bar by sitting still and hoping injuries go away. You meet that bar by making bold moves in the face of chaos. That's what the Shedeur Sanders opportunity is. It's chaos. It's uncomfortable. It's high stakes. But it's also high reward. If the Bengals want to show they're serious about building a sustainable, championship-caliber team, not just a hope Burrow stays healthy team, this is their move. And don't think fans haven't noticed the silence. Every day that passes with no trade, no update, no plan, it sends a message. That message is, we're not ready to be bold. That's not the message a contender sends. Let's also not ignore what this means for Shedeur. If this trade doesn't happen, and he's stuck in a system that won't use him, what does that say about the league? What does that say about merit? Because when a quarterback has everything, the physical tools, the leadership, the production, the drive, and still can't get on the field, that's not development. That's gatekeeping. And if the only thing holding him back is politics, his name, his confidence, then the NFL's next man up motto doesn't mean a thing. But if Cincinnati takes the leap, if they bring Shedeur in, give him the system, the support, the chance, they're not just betting on one player. They're betting on a philosophy. That talent wins. That opportunity matters. That sometimes the boldest move is the smartest move. And they're betting on themselves, on their ability to develop, to adapt, to compete. That's what this league rewards. Not caution, not indecision. Action. So what's it going to be? Cincinnati? Are you the team that steps up in the face of disaster? Or are you the team that watches a season dissolve into nothing while the solution was sitting there the whole time? You've got the roster. You've got the weapons. You've got a system that works. You just need a trigger man. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is holding out his hand. All you have to do is pick up the phone. Now we're at the tipping point. We've gone through the injury, the opportunity, the politics, the potential, the hesitation, and the silence. But we still haven't heard what matters most. The truth. The truth is, this isn't just a Bengals problem anymore. It's a league-wide reflection of how uncomfortable the NFL still is with disruption, with players who won't wait their turn, with quarterbacks who step forward before they're told they're allowed to, because that's what Shedeur Sanders is doing. He's not sitting quietly behind the scenes, waiting for someone else's injury to become his moment by default. He's not hiding behind agents or media spin. He's demanding his moment. And in the NFL, that's still taboo. But why? Quarterbacks are supposed to lead, right? They're supposed to command the huddle, control the tempo, be vocal, take charge. That's the job. But apparently, if they do it before the lead decides they've earned it, then it's a problem. And that's what's happening here. Shedeur isn't being doubted because he lacks the skill. He's being stalled because the system doesn't know how to deal with someone who knows what he brings and isn't afraid to say it. But this is football, not corporate PR. And when your team is spiraling, like the Bengals are, you don't worry about optics. You worry about outcomes. Let's talk fact again. Joe Burrow's been injured more often than not. Since entering the league, his career has been a pattern of brilliance interrupted by recovery, and more recovery. And now it's turf toe. A 3-month minimum recovery window during a season when the Bengals have to win. You don't get a grace period in the AFC. You fall behind in October and November, and you might as well be scheduling off-season meetings in December, especially with teams like the Ravens, Chiefs, Dolphins, and Bills fighting tooth and nail for playoff seeding. This is a conference built on urgency. You either adapt or disappear. So when a quarterback with a physical skill set and the drive of Shedeur Sanders becomes available, and you got the most urgent QB hole in the league, there's only one correct response. Make the move. But here we are, days into the speculation, and the Bengals are still quiet, still passive, still pretending that Jake Browning might hold the line until Burrow's miraculous return. Let's be real. That's not hope. That's denial. You don't run a playoff-level team based on the idea that your backup might just figure it out. Jake Browning isn't that guy. He's a practice squad quarterback who got elevated out of necessity, not confidence. You want to tell Jamar Chase he has to run 40 routes a game for underthrown curls and broken play rollouts? You think that locker room, full of guys who know this is their time, isn't already looking around for leadership? Trust me, they feel it. They see the window closing. And they know this isn't a problem you patch with duct tape. It needs a full replacement. That's what Shedeur offers. Even if you don't start him next week, even if he spends 3 games learning the playbook, he gives you something that Browning doesn't, a path forward, a chance to salvage the season and still be dangerous come December. A reason to believe that you're not just playing out the string. And let's talk optics from another angle. Because you know what makes a front office look good? Courage. You know what inspires a fan base that's losing faith? Action. Bringing in Shedeur Sanders wouldn't just electrify the field. It would send a message that Cincinnati isn't scared, that they're not hiding behind loyalty or media narratives, that they're here to win. Think about it. The Bengals would become the story of the NFL overnight, not just because of the chaos, not just because of the name, but because of what it represents. An NFL team breaking the cycle, taking a risk on a player who's not waiting for permission. That's the kind of energy that shakes up a locker room in the best way possible. It says, we're not folding. It says, we're betting on belief, not bureaucracy. And while we're here, let's not forget the long-term play. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a fix for this season. He's a future insurance policy, a developmental asset, a quarterback you can mold while still building around Burrow. Because again, this isn't about replacing Joe Burrow. This is about recognizing that one quarterback can't be the only plan. Not in this league. Not when every team is one blindside hit away from a meltdown. Look around. The 49ers kept 3 starting-level QBs in rotation. The Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts when they already had Carson Wentz. Smart teams prepare for the worst, even when they're banking on the best. And Cincinnati? They've been living on borrowed time for a while now. Burrow is brilliant, but he's fragile. And ignoring that because it's uncomfortable is how you go from Super Bowl hopeful to locker room implosion in a single season. That's why the Shedeur Sanders trade, demand matters so much more than just a quarterback shuffle. It's about a team choosing between fear and future. It's about whether they trust their own scouting enough to make a move before they're forced to. It's about whether they care more about public perception or playoff survival. And it's about whether Shedeur's career is going to be allowed to start or whether it'll be smothered by politics, back-channel whispers, and outdated thinking. Because the truth is, Shedeur has earned the shot. With his production, with his poise, with his patience, yes, patience. Because demanding a trade after being ignored despite his obvious upside, that's not impulsive. That's calculated. He's not running from competition. He's running from stagnation. And Cincinnati? They're currently parked in stagnation's driveway. So let's end this with one final question. One that every Bengals fan, player, and executive should be asking themselves. If not now, then when? When Burrow gets hurt again next season. When Chase starts asking whether this team really wants to win. When another AFC contender scoops Shedeur up, gives him a chance, and watches him develop into a force. Because if that happens, and it will happen somewhere, this franchise will look back at this exact moment and realize they had the shot. They just didn't take it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Should the Bengals go all in and get Shedeur Sanders? Or are they too scared to make the kind of move that actually saves a season? Don't forget to subscribe. Because if this trade does happen, we're going to have a lot to talk about. And if it doesn't, then buckle up, Bengals fans. The meltdown's just beginning.